Hey. Hi, beautiful girl. You know what we forgot? We forgot your burp cloth in the other room. We did. Should we go get it? Yeah, let's go get it. It turns out that it wasn't that we forgot the burp cloth, it was just that mommy dropped it on the way. I love avocado toast too. On the way over here, I dropped it. So it wasn't forgotten, it was dropped. Breakfast skillet with over easy eggs. I love an over easy egg. We actually had breakfast for dinner last night. My husband made over easy eggs and we dipped breakfast potatoes in them. Chef's kiss. We love to see it, right? You know, I don't know what she's looking at, if I'm being honest, but she is wide awake. I don't know if there's any hope of sleep this morning, which is a bit unfortunate because we have a long day ahead of us, but it is what it is, right, my angel? Mommy's got to do what her mommy's got to do. Yeah, her mommy's got to do crepes. Interesting. I can get down with a crepe. When I lived in New York City, I lived above a place that sold savory crepes. Really yummy. We got maybe even less sleep last night than the previous nights. We went down to waking up every 1.5 hours, yeah. Sometimes 2, but mostly 1.5. Mostly 1.5 hours. Yeah, silly. What a silly choice. Why would you want to wake up every 1.5 hours? I don't know. It sounds awful. But we'll survive. Good morning, Jen. Jen, your idea is like freaking hotcakes. You know, the Disney blind box thing. It's good. Just tell people that it is. I know. I just never. I try not to lie about allergies because people already don't take them seriously enough, and I don't want to perpetuate like them not getting taken seriously for the people who really need them. So I tell them it's an aversion, which is the truth. Why do you have mommy's hair just all over you? Probably because you're right up next to me. Yeah. So. But I've debated it, Brittany. I've debated saying Taven's morning. Hey, yes. Good morning, Ray. You missed the celebration with Liz yesterday. I think she's at a museum today. Hi. You want to show them your adorable little knuckle chubs? Hey, Naisa. Okay, so I want to tell you guys, are we having book club today? Yeah, right now. This is book club. It should say it. Doesn't it say book club in the title? Am I crazy? Doesn't it say book club? I thought it did. I thought it did. Good morning. Good morning, my beautiful angel. We chat before book club. Yes, we always chat before book club. But I was also going to tell you guys, I downloaded, oh good, I'm glad, right? I downloaded a collection of essays about tabloid culture in the 2000s that I think it might be an interesting thing for us to read while I'm away, so anyone who doesn't see the notice and, like, just in case, like, I have time in an afternoon to do a random book club, I don't want anyone who's with us, eggs and bacon is delicious, had that last night, anyone who can't make it to like an afternoon one and has been reading along with the series, I don't want them to miss the series because that seems unfair. But if we have like a collection of essays, I can put it up and there's no content, like there's no like need for a continued storyline, you know what I mean? Does that feel good to everybody? It's something interesting that would allow us to still have like one-off book clubs here and there while I'm gone without ruining the storyline. Yeah, feels right. Felt like a good choice. And I think something about like, the toxic culture of the tabloids in the 2000s definitely is in our wheelhouse with stuff we're interested in, Yeah, I'm here for it too. I don't know, it sounded like an interesting read, and I'm interested, it's like, it's a pretty feminist take on like how women were treated in that time period. I mean, it's still not great, but we've improved a little bit, so I'm interested in it, especially since most of us were like young when that happened, some of us weren't born, Isabella, but others of us were the right age to be influenced by that, you know what I mean? So, you're so smiley today. Are you my smiley girl? Are you my smiley girl? Hi, hi, hi. Are you my smiley girl? Smile, smiles, all smiles. Are you so happy you're gonna go see your cousins? You get to meet your cousins tomorrow. Yeah, we're flying overnight, huh? Yeah. She did not, Claire. I was just telling them, actually, I think she might have slept worse. We woke up in 1.5 hour increments. Yeah. Maybe you want to go to sleep now. What do you think? Oh, yeah. Yeah, Heather was like, oh, you look rested. And I was like, no, my hair is just clean. I don't know what slime club is, but it sounds really nice. Maybe you should start a slime club. I'm gonna miss making my own coffee, you guys. I don't like other people's coffee. How long are you gonna be in Florida? In 10 days, which I know sounds crazy, but it's because it's like a 2-part thing and my husband's working a convention, maybe switching up the time zone. That's what I was wondering, Jen. I was like, maybe this like flight will do us some good. I don't know. Yeah, we won't have Slime Lives for a 1.5 weeks, which I know is a bummer. Prom for your nephew? Could you cry? I could cry for you. Oh my gosh. Okay. Let's see if we can sit down. We did it. We sat down. But you are so wide awake. I feel like you're going to want to go in your bouncer. Or do you just want mommy to stand up and rock you? Should we just start there and not even pretend like you're going to let me sit down? What do you think? Should we just start right there? Oh. Let's see. What if we just do that and just like don't even pretend about sitting down? Guys, I have to water the plants. Like, what kind of business, who doesn't, like, this is outrageous. This poor plant, I have to put the little travel water thing in it before I go. Like, what is wrong with me? I have to water the plants. I'm saying it out loud so I don't forget. We're gonna water the plants. We're gonna water the plants. We're gonna part the thing in it that waters it while we're gone. That's what we're gonna do. I can't do it, well, I guess I could do it now, but it's hard to do when I'm holding her because it's like a whole thing I have to fill up. So I'm gonna have to do it when I have help from Secret Husband. But I will do it. Yeah. I watered them earlier this week. They don't have to be watered every day, but I need to put in the travel water thing. Yeah. You want to take a nap? You really should. You should nap. Swipe right to view interaction tips. No, I'm good. Thank you, Amanda. That's very helpful, actually. Okay, let's see. We are on chapter 13 today. Chapter 13, my sweet angel. 13. Are you ready for that? You look tired now. You were happy and awake a few minutes ago, but you look tired. Do you maybe want to take an NAP? What do you think? NAP for a TIREDGIRL? Why am I spelling everything, huh? Is it because you're a genius and you know what it means? Yeah. It's a burp cloth. You don't have to suffocate in it. I can't imagine what tips you would have. I don't know. I'm new here. Did you have a baby? Yes. Yes. This is my baby. She's 4 months old. Yes. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Let's read chapter 13, okay, honey? Okay. Let's do it. Lucy Gray understood instantly. Her eyes darted to the peacekeepers, none of whom were paying attention, and she leaned in and took a sniff of the compact. You can still smell it. Lovely. It is not stolen. I know. She's definitely rubbing her face because she's tired. I know. She always does that. It's like her thing that she does. She just, when she's overtired, she just rubs her face against me, and then she eventually falls asleep. So we'll be okay. She'll fall asleep. You can still smell it, though. Lovely. Yeah, like roses, he said. Like you, she said. It really would be like having you with me, wouldn't it? Go on, he urged her. Take me with you. Take it. Lucy Gray wiped away her tears with the back of her hand. Okay, but it is a loner. She took the compact and slipped it into her pocket and gave it a pat. It helps me to clarify my thinking. Somehow winning the games is just too large to conceive of, but if I say I need to get this back to Coriolanus, I can wrap my mind around that. I know, we're really close, Amanda. Really close. They talked a bit more, mostly about the layout of the arena and where the best hiding places might be, and he got half of the sandwich and all of a peach into her by the time Professor Sickle blew her whistle. Coriolanus wasn't sure how it happened, but they both must have risen, both moved forward, because he found her in his arms, her hands clutching his shirt front as he locked her in an embrace. You're all I'm gonna think about in the arena, she whispered. Not that guy back in 12, he said, half jokingly. No, he made sure he killed anything I felt for him, she said. The only boy in my heart now that my heart has a sweet spot for now is you. And then she gave him a kiss, not a peck, a real kiss on the lips with hints of peaches and powder. The feel of her mouth, soft and warm against his own, sent sensation surging through his body. Rather than pulling back, he held her even tighter as the taste and touch of her made his head spin. So this is what people were talking about. This was what made them go so crazy. When they finally broke apart, he drew a deep breath as if surfacing from the depths. Lucy Gray's lashes fluttered open, and the look in her eyes matched his own. They simultaneously leaned in for another kiss when the peacekeepers laid hands on her and led her away. Hey, Christina, we barely just started because someone, people do get weird about babies. It's very strange. Okay, I think we're out. 8:44. Sorry, weird noise. Festus nudged him on the way out of the hall. That was some goodbye you had there. Coriolanus shrugged. What can I say? I'm irresistible. The kiss left him giddy. I guess, Festus answered. I tried to give Coral a reassuring pat on the shoulder and she tried to break my wrist. The kiss left him giddy, though. Beyond a doubt, he crossed a line, but he didn't regret it. It had been amazing. He walked home alone, savoring the bittersweet parting, electrified by his daring. Maybe he'd broken a rule or two by giving her the compact and suggesting that she fill it with rat poison, but who knew? There was no real rule book for the Hunger Games. Okay, he probably had broken a rule, but even so, it was worth it for her. Still, he wasn't telling anyone about this, not even Tigress. I know, it's so strange, Claire. It's true. A lot of these people who are like, oh, did you have a baby, would never say that in public. It's very odd. Chocolate chip pancakes. Ooh, French toast. I miss French toast. It wasn't a game changer necessarily. It would take cleverness and luck to poison another tribute, but Lucy Gray was clever and no more unlucky than the others. They would have to ingest the poison, and so his job would be to get her food to use as bait. He felt more in control, having something to do besides watch. After the grandmama had gone to bed, he confided in Tigress, "I think she's fallen in love with me." "Well, of course she has. What do you feel for her?" she asked. "I don't know," he answered. I kissed her goodbye." Tigress raised an eyebrow. "On the cheek?" "No, on the lips." He thought about how to explain it, but all he could muster was, "She's something else," which was undeniable on so many levels. The truth was, he didn't have much experience when it came to girls, and even less when it came to love. Keeping the Snows' situation a secret had always been top priority. The cousins rarely had anyone to the apartment, even when Tigress had fallen hard in her final year of the academy. Her reluctance to bring her sweetheart home had been taken as a lack of commitment to him, but it had been a deciding factor in the breakup. Coriolanus took the incident as a warning to not become too deeply entangled with anyone himself. Plenty of his classmates had been interested in him, but he'd skillfully kept them at arm's length. The excuse of that broken elevator had come in handy, and the grandmama had several fictional ailments that required absolute quiet. There had been one thing last year in the alley behind the train station, but that wasn't really a romance so much as a dare that Festus had put him up to. Between the Posca and the darkness, the memory was sketchy at best. On reflection, he had never even learned her name, but it had earned him the reputation of being a player. But Lucy Gray was his tribute, headed to the arena, and even if the circumstances were different, she would still be a girl from the districts, or at least not from the capital. A second-class citizen, a human, but bestial. That's a hard word to say, bestial. Smart, perhaps, but not evolved. Part of a shapeless mass of unfortunate, barbaric creatures that hover on the periphery of his consciousness. Surely, if there had ever been an exception to the rule, though, it was Lucy Gray Baird, a person who defied easy definition, a rare bird just like him. Why else had the pressure of his lips turned his knees to water? Coriolanus fell asleep that night replaying the kiss in his head. The morning of the Hunger Games dawned bright and clear. He readied himself, he ate the eggs the Tigress prepared for him, and he made the long, hot walk to Capitol News. He declined the thick makeup that Lucky had spackled onto his own face, but allowed a light dusting of powder, not wanting to look too sweaty for the cameras. Calm and unruffled, those were the qualities a Snow should project. The powder smelled sweet, but it lacked the refinement of his mother's cake, which was tucked in his sock drawer back home. "Good morning, Mr. Snow." Dr. Gall's voice snapped him to attention. Of course she was here at the television studio. Where else would she be on the opening morning of the games? Why Dean Highbottom had found it necessary to make an appearance he did not know, but his bleary eyes peered down at Coriolanus. "We hear there was quite a touching scene when you parted from your tribute last night." Ugh, would it be possible to find two people less capable of love? How did they even know about the kiss? Professor Sickle didn't seem like a gossip, who was spreading it around? Probably most of the mentors had seen it. Never mind. These two would not get a rise out of him. As Dr. Gall pointed out, emotions are running high. "Yes, it's too bad she's not likely to last a day," said Dr. Gall. How he hated the pair of them, gloating, baiting him. Still, all he could allow himself was an indifferent twitch of his shoulders. Well, as they say, it's not over till the Mockingjay sings. He felt satisfaction at the puzzlement on their face. They did not have a chance to question him, because Remus Doolittle appeared to inform them that the boy from District 5 had passed away in the night due to complications from asthma or some such thing. Anyway, the veterinarian couldn't save him, and they had to go off and address his loss. Try as he might, Coriolanus couldn't remember that boy or even which of his classmates had been assigned to him. In preparation for the opening of the games, he'd updated the mentor list that he received from Professor Demigloss. He decided, for simplicity's sake, to cross the teams off in pairs, regardless of what had happened to them. He didn't mean to be ruthless, but there was no other way to keep it straight, so he pulled out his list from his book bag to record the latest casualties. And I'll just show you what it looks like, because reading it, we've read this list a lot of times. A lot of them have been crossed off.
The number of Lucy Gray's competitor had now dropped to 13. Another gone, and a boy too. This could only be good news for her. I also like cold spaghetti. His mentor sheet had begun to get a bit crumbled, so he folded it into crisp quarters and decided to put it in the outside pocket of his book bag for easy access. When he opened it, he discovered a handkerchief. He puzzled for a moment since his were always on his person, but then he remembered this is the one that Lucy Gray had returned after drying her eyes the day that he had brought her bread pudding. It felt good to have something so personal, a talisman of sorts, and he slid the list in carefully beside it. I wish you guys could see her face. She's like, are you breathing? Yes, very much breathing. The only mentors invited to appear on the pre-show were the 7 who'd participated in interview night. They had, by default, become the capital faces of the game. Even though the several of their tributes seemed like long shots, a corner of the studio had been outfitted with upholstered living room chairs, a coffee table, and a slightly crooked chandelier. Most of the mentors rehashed their tributes' backgrounds, playing up any dangerous elements that they could. Since Coriolanus had devoted his entire interview to Lucy Gray's song, he was the only one with fresh material. Pleased to have something new, Lucky Flickerman let him run over his allotted time, and after filling in the usual details, Coriolanus spent most of the time talking about the Covey and emphasizing that Lucy Gray was not really district. No, not really at all. The Covey had a long history as musical performers. They were artists of a kind rarely seen, and they were no more like district residents than the people from the capital even were. And by a series of in fact, if you thought about it, they almost were capital, and by a series of misfortunes had somehow landed or quite possibly been mistakenly detained in District 12. Surely people could see how at home Lucy Gray seemed in the capital, and Lucky had to agree that, yes, there was something special about this girl. Liz Estrada shot him a look of annoyance as he took his seat, which he understood when he realized that she was trying to tie Jessup to Lucy Gray in her interview and win sympathy for the two as a pair. While it was true that Jessup was a District 12 coal miner stock through and through, hadn't the two of them shown a natural partnership from the first bow? And who hadn't noticed the unusual closeness between them, so often seen by tributes from the same district? In fact, Liz Estrada was convinced that they were devoted to each other. With Jessup's strength and Lucy Gray's ability to charm the audience, she felt sure that this year's victor would come from 12. Hey, Renee. The reason for Dean Highbottom's presence became clear when he followed on Liz Estrada's heels. He managed to discuss the mentor tribute program as if he hadn't been drugged the entire time. Actually, Coriolanus found it a little unsettling how lucid some of his observations were. Very, very funny, Renee. He noted that the capital students had begun with certain prejudices against their district counterparts, but in the 2 weeks since the reaping, many of them had formed a new appreciation and respect for them.
It is essential, as they say, to know your enemy, so what better way to get to know each other than to join forces in the Hunger Games?
The capital won the war only after a long, hard fight, and recently our arena... Sorry. I started reading in the narrator voice. That was not narration. My bad. Let's go back.
So what better way to get to know others than to join forces in the Hunger Games? The capital won the war only after a long, hard fight, and recently our arena was bombed. To imagine that on either side we lack intelligence, strength, or courage would be a mistake.
But
surely you're not comparing our children to theirs, are you? Asked Lucky. One look tells you that ours are a superior breed. One look tells you that ours have more food, nicer clothing, and better dental care, said Dean Highbottom. Assuming anything more mental, physical, or especially moral superiority would be a mistake. That sort of hubris almost finished us off in the war.
Fascinating, said Lucky, seeming lacking for a better response. Your views are, absolutely fascinating.
Thank you, Mr. Flickerman. I can think of no one whose opinion I value more than yours.
Deadpanned the dean. Coriolanus thought that the dean's eye roll was implied, but Lucky blushed in response.
Oh, well, that's very kind of you, Mr. Highbottom. As we all know, I am but a humble weatherman. And a budding magician, Dean Highbottom reminded him. Yeah, well, perhaps. I plead guilty to that, said Lucky with a chortle. Hold on, what's this? He reached behind Dean Highbottom's ear and pulled out a small, flat candy with bright stripes. I believe this is yours. He presented it to the dean, colors smearing in his damp palm. Dean Highbottom made no move to take it. My goodness, where did that come from, Lucky? Secrets of the trade, said Lucky with a knowing grin. Secrets of the trade. Which one, Claire? Dean Highbottom's?
Cars were waiting to carry them back to the academy, and Coriolanus found himself with Felix and Dean Highbottom. The two of them seemed to know each other socially, and so they largely ignored Coriolanus while they caught up on gossip. It gave him time to reflect on what Dean Highbottom had said about the people of the districts, that they were essentially equals of those in the capital, only worse off materially. It was somewhat of a radical idea for the dean to be putting out there. Certainly the grandmama and many others would reject it, and it would diminish Coriolanus's own effort, which had been to present Lucy Gray as something completely other than district. Well, I'm glad you like that voice. Someone, I think it was Amanda the other day, said it reminded her of Snape. And maybe it is. He wondered how much of that had to do with a winning strategy, how much of it reflected his confusion about his feelings for her. It was not until they were headed into the hall and Felix was distracted by a camera crew that Coriolanus felt a hand on his arm.
You know that friend of yours from 2, the emotional one?
Dean Highbottom asked him. Sejanus Plinth, said Coriolanus, not that they were actually friends, but that wasn't any of Dean Highbottom's business.
You might want to find him a seat near the door.
Dean Highbottom slipped a bottle from his pocket and ducked behind a nearby pillar, dosing himself with morphling drops. Before he could consider this, Lysistrata appeared in a temper. Honestly, Coriolanus, you could work with me a little. Jessup keeps calling Lucy Gray his ally. I had no idea that that was your pitch, really. I didn't mean to trip you up. If we get another chance, we'll work as a team, he promised. Yeah, that's a big if, Lysistrata said with an exasperated huff. Satria then made her way through the crowd and didn't help the situation when she crowed, "What a clever interview, my dear. I half believed that your girl was capital-born myself. Now come on, you too, Lysistrata. You need your bandages and your communicuff." Sorry, not bandages, badges and communicuff. I've never had gravy biscuits. She led them through the hall, which, unlike in previous years, was buzzing with excitement. People were shouting good luck to him, congratulating him on the interview, and Coriolanus enjoyed the attention, but there was something undeniably disturbing about it as well. In the past, these had been subdued occasions in which people avoided eye contact and spoke only when necessary. Now an eagerness filled the hall, as if a much-loved entertainment awaited them. At the table, a game maker oversaw the distribution of the mentor's supplies. While all were given a bright yellow badge with the word mentor emblazoned on it to wear around their necks, the only ones with tributes still in the games were issued communicuffs, making them the object of envy. So much personal technology had disappeared during the war and in its aftermath, as manufacturing had focused on other priorities. These days, even simple devices were a big deal. The cuffs were buckled onto their wrists, and it featured a small screen where a tally of sponsor gifts blinked in red. Interesting. All the mentors had to do was scroll down the list of food items, select it from the menu, and then double-click on it for the game maker to set its delivery by drone into motion. Some of the tributes had no gifts at all coming to them. Despite not appearing in the interviews, Reaper had picked up a few sponsors from his time in the zoo, but Clemencia was nowhere to be seen, and her communicuff sat unclaimed at the table, drawing a covetous look from Livia. Coriolanus drew Lysistrata aside and showed her his screen. Look, I've got a small fortune to work with. If they're together, I'll send food for both. Thank you. I'll do the same. I didn't mean to snap like that. Honestly, it's not your fault. I should have brought it up before. Her voice dropped into a hush. It's just, I couldn't sleep last night, thinking about sitting through all of this. I know it's to punish the districts, but honestly, haven't we punished them enough? How long do we have to keep dragging out this war? I think Dr. Gall believes that it's forever, he said, like she told us in class. But it's not just her. Look at everybody. She indicated at the party-like atmosphere of the room. This is revolting. Coriolanus tried to calm her. My cousin said to remember this isn't of our making and that we're still children too. That doesn't help somehow, being used like this, Lysistrata said sadly, especially when 3 of us are dead. Hey, Roxy. Used? Coriolanus hadn't thought of being a mentor as anything but an honor, a way to serve the capital and perhaps gain a little glory, but Lysistrata had a point. If the cause wasn't honorable, how could it be an honor to participate in it? He felt confused, and then manipulated, and then undefended, as if he were more of a tribute than a mentor. Tell me it's going to be over quickly, Lysistrata said. It'll be over quickly, Coriolanus reassured her. Want to sit together? We can coordinate our gifts. Yes, please, she said. The whole school had assembled by this time. They made their way over to the section of 24 mentor seats, which were in the same place they'd been for the reaping. Everyone was required to attend, whether they had a viable tribute or not. Let's not sit in the front, said Lysistrata. I don't want that camera right in my face when he's killed. She was right, of course. The camera would go to the mentor, and if Lucy Gray died, well, especially if Lucy Gray died, he was assured a good, long close-up. Hey, Isabella. Coriolanus obliged her by heading towards the back row. It is interesting given his future, Priscilla, you're right. As they settled themselves in, he turned his attention to the giant screen on which Lucky Flickerman acted as a tour guide to the districts, giving a background about their industries, spiced with weather facts and the occasional magic trick. The Hunger Games had been a big break for Lucky, and he was not above accompanying his District 5 spiel on energy with some gadget that made his hair stand on end. It's just electrifying, he panted. You're an idiot, muttered Lysistrata, and then something caught her attention. That must have been an awful flu. Coriolanus followed her gaze to the table where Clemencia had just collected her communicuff. She was scanning the room for someone. Oh, it was him. The moment that their eyes met, she made a beeline for the back row and didn't look happy. Yeah, that's a really good point, Mel. That's a really good point. I didn't even think about that. In the future, in the other books that we've read, the winners become the mentors. Yeah. She looked terrible, really. The bright yellow of her eyes had faded to a pale pollen shade, and a long-sleeved, high-collared white blouse concealed a scaly area. But even with those improvements, she radiated sickliness. She picked distractedly at patches on her face, and her tongue, while not protruding from her mouth, seemed bent on exploring the insides of her cheeks. I don't know why, but after you said he's a tour guide, my brain said he's a tour guide. He's a tour guide Barbie. That's amazing. She made her way to the seat directly in front of Coriolanus and stood there, flicking at bits of skin randomly into the air as she examined him. Thanks for visiting me, Corio, Clemencia said. Look, I meant to, Clemmy. I was pretty beat up, he started to explain, but she cut him off. Thanks for contacting my parents. Thanks for letting them know where I was. Lysistrata looked puzzled. We knew where you were, Clem. They said that you couldn't have visitors because you were contagious. I even tried to call, but they told me that you were sleeping. Coriolanus ran with that. I tried too, Clemmy, repeatedly. They always gave me the runaround. And as to your parents, well, the doctors promised that they were on their way. Okay. None of that was true, but what else could he say? Obviously, the venom had unbalanced her, or she wouldn't even be bringing the whole incident up in a public setting. If I was wrong, I'm sorry, and as I said, I've been recovering myself. Really? Clemencia said. You look top-notch at the interview, you and your tribute. Easy, Clem. It's not his fault that you got sick, said Festus, who arrived in time to hear enough of the conversation. Oh, shut up, Festus. You have no idea what you're talking about. Clemencia spat out and stomped off to take a seat at the front. Festus settled down next to Lysistrata. What's her problem? He asked, other than she looks like she's molting. Oh, who knows? We're all a mess, said Lysistrata. Still, that isn't like her. I wonder what... Festus began, but... Sejanus, Coriolanus called out, happy for an interruption. Over here. There was an empty seat next to him, and he needed a way to shift the conversation. Ah, thanks, said Sejanus, dropping into the seat on the end. He looked unwell, exhausted, with a feverish sheen on his skin. Lysistrata reached across Coriolanus and pressed one of his hands. The sooner this starts, the sooner it can be over, she said. Yeah, until next year, he reminded her. But he gave her a hand and a grateful pat. The students had barely been instructed to take their seats when the seal of the Capitol overtook the screens, and the anthem drew everyone to their feet. Coriolanus's voice rang out over those of the other mentors who mumbled their way through the anthem. Honestly, by this point, couldn't they even make a little effort? When Lucky Flickerman returned to extend his hand and a welcoming gesture, Coriolanus could see the bright candy smear from the magic trick on his palm. "Well, ladies and gentlemen," he said, "let the 10th annual Hunger Games begin." A wide shot from the arena's interior replaced Lucky, and the 14 tributes who remained on his list were positioned in a large circle, awaiting the opening gong. No one paid any attention to them, or to the wreckage from the bombing that littered the field, or to the weapons strewn on the dusty ground, or to the flag of Panem strung from the stands, adding an unprecedented decorative touch to the arena. All eyes moved with the camera, riveted as it slowly zoomed into the pair of steel poles not far from the main entrance of the arena. They were 25 feet high and joined by a crossbeam of similar length. At the center of the structure, Marcus hung from manacled wrists, so battered and bloody that at first Coriolanus thought that they were displaying his corpse. And then Marcus's swollen lips began to move, showing his broken teeth and leaving little doubt that he was still alive. Oh my. Oh my. I need a sip of coffee. And I'm going to try to settle this little lady so that we can read one more chapter, huh? Do you think we can settle? And we're going to turn in a circle to not show your face? What do you think? Mommy needs a sip of coffee. That would be quite a hit cliffhanger, honey. If you could settle, I know, I'm trying to get her unrestless. If I can get her to settle, we can read another one. But I need to give my throat a little liquid first. Ah, it's so good. Coffee. Seems settled. I don't think nervous is the right word, Avery. I hope that she'll get rest. That's what I hope, but I'm not necessarily nervous. I think it'll be okay. What I've heard is that at this age, it's easier to fly with them than, say, like, flying for the first time when they're 1 or 2, when they can, like, clock what's going on, you know? Because she's not going to have any idea what's going on. We've got earmuffs for her to protect from the noise, and I know to feed her on takeoff and landing to make her ears pop, but I think other than that, she'll be fine. Because it's an overnight flight, so she should sleep a little bit. I mean, even though she has been waking up every couple hours, she isn't like waking up screaming or anything like that. She just wakes up and she kind of goes, a little bit, asks for food and goes back to bed, you know? So she's not a loud baby either, which you guys have probably noticed. I mean, like when she's awake, she babbles and talks, but she's not a crier, really. Yeah, and as soon as the seatbelts are light is turned off, I can stand up and bounce her like this and walk her around. I'm gonna be carrying her anyway, in one of my carriers, which is good because they don't make you take them out of them for TSA, so she can just stay on me, which we know, as you can see right here, she loves. This is her favorite place to be. On a nap on mommy, huh? You like to nap on mommy? She's like, I'm asleep, don't talk to me. Yeah, it's a straight flight. We could not risk having a layover with her. Oh my gosh, that would be insane. Insane. Heather, I have to tell you something before we read the next chapter. Heather, you're getting 3 videos instead of 2 because, well, something happened with one of your slimes. I'm not going to say what it is because I want it to be a surprise in the video. You got 2 slimes, but you got 3 videos. It's an interesting situation. Yes, the carriers are safe for both of us. That's right. It's like 4.5 hours, Nikki. So it's not so bad, right? Okay, chapter 14. Let's see if we can get through this. I hope we can. Coriolanus felt ill but incapable of looking away. It would have been horrifying to see any creature displayed that way. A dog, a monkey, a rat even. But a boy whose only real crime had been to run for his life. Had Marcus gone on a killing spree throughout the capital, it would have been one thing, but no such reports had followed the wake of his escape. Coriolanus flashed back to the funeral parades, the grisliest exhibits, brandy dangling from a hook, and the tributes being dragged through the streets. What? Do I not know how to read? I'm so sorry. Let's read that sentence again. The grisliest exhibits, brandy dangling from a hook, and the tributes dragged through the streets had been reserved for the dead. The Hunger Games themselves had been a twisted brilliance of pitting district children against district children. So the capital kept its hands clean of actual violence. There was no precedent for Marcus's torture. Under Dr. Gall's guidance, the capital had reached a new level of retaliation. The image drained the party atmosphere from Heavensby Hall. The interior of the arena had no microphones except for a few around the oval wall, so none were close enough to hear if Marcus was trying to speak. Coriolanus desperately wished for the gong to sound, to release the tributes into action and distraction, but the opening stasis stretched on. He could feel Sejanus shaking with rage, and he had just turned to put a quieting hand on him when the boy sprang from his seat and ran forward. They won't let you baby wear on board? Really? I thought that you could. I think you can. I think you can. Or at least I read that you could. I hope you can. It'd be really unfortunate if you can't. Because that's what we were planning to do, to get her to sleep. I don't know. Yeesh, I'll have to look into that before we go, because I had planned to put her in her lark for the whole flight, essentially. I guess I could bring this one if I have to. Yeah, I'll double check. The mentor section had 5 empty chairs reserved for their missing classmates, and Sejanus grabbed one of the corners and hurled it towards the screen, smashing it into the image of Marcus's ravaged face. "Monsters!" he screamed. "You're all monsters!" And then he dashed back down the aisle and out the main entrance to the hall. No one moved a muscle to stop him. The gong sounded at that moment, and the tributes scattered, and most fled to the gates that led to the tunnels, several of which had been blown open by the latest bombings. Coriolanus could see Lucy Gray's bright dress heading for the far side of the arena, and his fingers gripped the edge of his seat, willing her forward. Run, he thought. Run, get out of there. And a handful of the strongest sprinted for the weapons. After grabbing a few, Tanner, Coral, and Jessup dispersed. Only Reaper, armed with a pitchfork and a long knife, seemed ready to engage. But by the time he was on the offensive, no one remained to fight him. He turned to watch the receding backs of his opponents and threw back his head in frustration and climbed into a nearby stand to begin his hunt. The game makers took this opportunity to cut back to Lucky. "Wish you'd placed a bet but couldn't make it to the post office? Finally decided on which tribute to back?" A phone number flashed at the bottom of the screen. "You can do it all by phone now. Just call the number below and give your citizen digits, the name of the tribute you'd like to sponsor, and the amount you'd like to bet or gift, and you will be part of the action. Or, if you'd rather make a transaction in person, the post office will be open daily from 8 to 8. Come on, don't miss out on this historic moment. It's your chance to support the Capitol and make a tidy profit too. Be a part of the Hunger Games and be a winner." Now, back to the arena. Within a few minutes, the arena had cleared of every tribute except Reaper. After roaming around the stands for a bit, he ducked out of sight too. Marcus and his agony became the focus of the games. "Should you go after Sejanus?" Lysistrata whispered to Coriolanus. "I think he'd rather be alone," he whispered back, which was probably true, but secondary to the fact that he didn't want to miss anything and trigger a response from Dr. Gall or publicly link himself to Sejanus. This growing perception that they were great friends and that he was the confidant of the loose cannon from the districts was beginning to worry him. Passing out sandwiches was one thing, but throwing a chair was quite another. There were sure to be repercussions, and he had enough trouble without adding Sejanus to the list. A very long half-hour passed before a distraction drew the audience's attention. The bombs near the entrance had blown open the main gate, but a barricade had been built under the scoreboard. With its multiple layers of concrete slabs, wooden planks, and barbed wire, it was both an eyesore and a reminder of the rebel attack, which was probably why the game makers hadn't given it much screen time. Okay, cool, Nikki, thank you, I appreciate that. However, with little else going on, they relented to show the audience a long, skinny-limbed girl creeping out of the fortification. "It's Lamania," Pup told Livia, who was seated next to him and a couple of rows ahead of Coriolanus. Coriolanus had no recollection of Pup's tribute except that she had been unable to stop weeping at the first mentor tribute meeting. Pup failed to prepare her for the interview and had thus forfeited the chance to promote her. He couldn't recall her district. Maybe she was from 5. You're okay. You're okay. Hey, you're okay. You're okay. You're okay. Shh, 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 shh. A rather jarring voiceover set him straight.
"Now we see 15-year-old Laminia from District 7, Lucky said, mentored by our own Pliny Harrington. District 7 has the honor of providing the capital with lumber used to repair our beloved arena."
Lamania surveyed Marcus, taking in his plight. The summer breeze ruffled the blonde halo of hair. She squinted against the bright sun. She wore a dress that looked to be fashioned from a flour sack and belted with a piece of rope. Insect bites dotted her bare feet and legs. Her eyes, puffy and exhausted, were reddened but tearless. In fact, she seemed strangely calm for her circumstances. Without hesitation, without nervousness, she crossed to the weapons and took her time, choosing first a knife, then a small axe, and then testing each blade for sharpness with the tip of her thumb. She stuck the knife into her belt and swung the axe loosely back and forth, feeling its weight. And then she made her way to one of the poles. Her hand ran down its steel, which was rusty, and paint splattered from some previous job. Coriolanus thought that she might try to chop it down, being from the lumber district and all, but instead she secured the axe handle between her teeth and she began to climb it, using her knees and calloused feet to grip the metal. It looked natural, like a caterpillar making its way up a stem, but as someone who had put in extra hours to scale the rope in gym class, he knew how much strength this took. When she reached the top of the post, Laminia regained her feet and slid the axe into her belt. Although the crossbeam couldn't have measured more than 6 inches in width, she'd easily walked along it until she stood above Marcus. Straddling the beam, she locked her ankles for support, leaned over towards his battered head. She said something that the microphones couldn't pick up, but he must have heard, because he moved his lips in response, and Laminia sat upright and considered the situation, and then she braced herself again and swung down and drove the axe blade into the curved side of Marcus's neck. Once, twice, and a third time. In a spray of blood, she succeeded in killing him. Regaining her seat, she wiped her hands on her clean skirt and scattered off into the arena. Okay, I'm gonna say something. It's kind of like a mercy kill, you guys. You know, that was kind of a mercy kill. And she probably said as much to him because he wasn't in good shape and he wasn't gonna survive better than being tortured, right? I mean, like, am I wrong on this? Yeah, okay. That's how I feel. I don't think she was trying to be cruel. I think she genuinely was like, let me save this guy and not let him just torture here for a while. So, thank you to her for that. "That's my girl," Pup cried out, and suddenly he appeared on the screen as Heavensby Hall's camera streamed his reaction. Coriolanus caught a glimpse of himself a couple of rows behind Pup and sat up straighter. Pup grinned, revealing bits of his morning eggs in his braces, and he gave a fist bump. "First kill of the day. That's my tribute. Lamina from District 7, he said to the camera, and he held up his wrist. "And my Communicup is open for business. Never too late to show your support and send a gift." Yeah, probably. I think you're right, Amanda. That's probably what she whispered. I don't even remember that, Nikki, but I think you're right. Yeah. And that's not to say it didn't happen. My memory for movies is really bad compared to my memory for books. The number flashed on the screen again, and Coriolanus could hear a few faint pings coming from Pup's communicuff as Lavinia received some sponsor gifts. The Hunger Games felt more fluid, more changeful than he'd prepared for. Wake up, he told himself. You're not a spectator, you're a mentor. Thank you, Pup waved at the screen. Well, I think she deserves a little something, don't you? And he fiddled with the communicuff and looked up at the screen expectantly as the cameras jumped back to Lavinia. The audience watched with anticipation as this would be the first attempt to deliver a gift to a tribute. A minute passed, and then 5, and Coriolanus began to wonder if the technology had failed the game makers when a small drone clutching a pint-sized bottle of water in its claws appeared over the top of the arena by the entrance and made its way shakily to Lamina. It looped and dipped and even reversed course before crashing into the crossbeam a good 10 feet from her and falling to the ground like a swatted insect. The bottle had cracked, so the water soaked into the dirt and vanished. Yeah, there is a movie for it. Yeah. The one that they haven't made is for the book that just came out like last month, so we'll definitely read that before the movie comes out. Lamina stared down at her gift, expressionless, as if she'd expected nothing more, but Pup burst out angrily. Hey, wait a minute, he said. That's not fair. Someone paid good money for that. And the crowd murmured in agreement. No immediate remedy followed, but a replacement bottle flew in 10 minutes later, and this time Lamina managed to snatch it from the drone, which followed its predecessor to a dusty death. Lamina took an occasional sip of her water, but other than that, little movement occurred except the gathering of flies around Marcus's body. Coriolanus could hear the occasional ping from Pup's communicuff signifying additional gifts to Lamina, who seemed content to remain on the crossbeam. It wasn't a bad strategy, really, safer than the ground for sure. She had a plan. She could kill. In less than an hour, Lamina had redefined herself as a contender in the games. She seemed a lot tougher than Lucy Gray anyway, wherever Lucy was. Time passed. With the exception of Reaper, who occasionally could be seen prowling the stands, none of the tributes presented themselves as hunters, not even the armed ones. Had it not been for Marcus's presentation and Lamania finishing him off, it would have been an exceptionally slow opening. I did too until I looked at the books. Ah, yes, very good. Usually some sort of bloodbath could be counted on to kick off the games, but with so many of the competitive tributes dead, the field consisted largely of prey. The arena shrank to a small window at the corner of the screen as Lucky appeared, giving more district background and dropping in a weather report here and there for good measure. Having a full-time host for the games was new territory, and he struggled to create this role. When Tanner climbed and strolled along the top row of the arena, he quickly drew the broadcast back, but the tribute only sat a while in the sun before vanishing into the passages beneath the stand. A rustling in the back of Heavensby Hall turned heads, and Coriolanus spotted Lepidus Malmsby making his way up the aisle with his camera crew. He invited Pup to join him, and their interview went live. Pup, a previously untapped source, rattled off every detail he could think about of Lamina, and then added several more that Coriolanus felt were fabricated, but it only even took a few minutes. This set the pattern for the morning. Brief informational interviews with the mentors, long expanses of inactivity in the arena, and everyone welcomed their lunch break. You lied about it being over quickly, Lysistrata mumbled as they lined up for bacon sandwiches stacked on the table in the hall. Things are going to pick up, Coriolanus said. They have to pick up. But they didn't, it seemed. The long, hot afternoon brought only a few more tribute sightings and a quartet of carrion birds that circled lazily above Marcus. Laminia managed to hack away at his restraints enough to send him tumbling to the ground. For her efforts, Pup sent her a slice of bread, which she broke up and rolled into small balls and ate one at a time. And then she stretched out on her stomach, secured her spindly frame by tying a rope belt around the beam, and she dozed off to sleep. That sounds familiar. I think Katniss did that in the tree, right? Capital News found short-lived relief by streaming the plaza in the front of the arena, where concession stands had been set up to sell drinks and sweets to the citizens who had come down to watch the games on two large screens flanking the entrance. With so little happening in the arena, most of the attention ended up on a pair of dogs whose owner had dressed them up like Lucy Gray and Jessup. Coriolanus felt conflicted about this. He didn't really like seeing that silly poodle in Lucy Gray's rainbow ruffles, until a couple of pings registered on his communicuff, and then he decided there was no bad publicity. But the dogs tired, and they were taken home, and still nothing else happened. 5 o'clock was nearing when 5 o'clock was nearing when Lucky introduced Dr. Gall to the audience. He'd become visibly frazzled under the strain of keeping the coverage going. Throwing his hands up in bewilderment, he said, "Well, what gives, head game maker?" Dr. Gall basically ignored him, speaking directly to the camera. "Some of you may be wondering about the slow start to the games, but let me remind you what a wild ride it's been just to get here. Over a third of the tributes never even made it into the arena, and those who did, well, for the most part, they weren't exactly powerhouses. In terms of fatalities, we're running neck and neck with last year." What's the matter, sweetheart? What's the matter, my angel? Yes, that is true, said Lucky. But I think I speak for a lot of people when I say, where are the tributes this year? Usually they're easier to spot. "Perhaps you've forgotten about the recent bombing," said Dr. Gall. "In previous years, the arena opens to the tributes. Well, they are largely restricted to the field and the stands now. Since last week's attack opened up any number of cracks and crevices, providing an easy labyrinth of tunnels inside the walls of the arena. It's a whole new game. First finding another tribute, and then ferreting them out of some very dark corners." Oh, Lucky looked disappointed. "So, we might have seen the last of some of the tributes?" "Oh, don't worry. When they get hungry, they'll start poking their heads out," Dr. Gall replied. "That's another game change. With the audience providing food, the games could last indefinitely." "Indefinitely?" Lucky said. "I hope you got a lot more magic tricks up your sleeve," cackled Dr. Gall. "You know, I've got a rabbit mutt I'd love to see you pull out of a hat. It's part pit bull." Lucky blanched a bit and attempted to laugh. "Oh, no, thanks. I've got my own pets, Dr. Gall." "I feel almost sorry for him," Coriolanus whispered to Lysistrata. "I don't," she answered. "They deserve each other." At 5 o'clock, Dean Highbottom dismissed the student body, and the 14 mentors with the tributes stayed on, largely because their communicuffs only worked through transmitters at the academy or in the Capitol News station itself. Around 7 o'clock, a real dinner appeared for the talent, which made Coriolanus feel important and right at the center of things. The pork chops and potatoes were certainly better fare than what he had at home, another reason for wanting Lucy Gray to stay alive. Sopping up the gravy on his plate, he wondered if she was hungry, and as they collected their blueberry tarts and cream, he pulled Lysistrata aside to discuss the situation. Their tributes should have a nice little stash of food from their goodbye meeting, especially if Jessup had lost his appetite. But what about water? "Oh, that's exciting, Nikki. Thank you. If you get it for free from work, then yeah, why not?" Was there a source inside the arena for water? And even if they wanted to get to it, how would they go about sending supplies in without revealing their tribute's hiding spot? Dr. Gall was likely right about the tributes poking their head out if they wanted something, and until then, they reasoned, the best strategy would be to sit tight. As they finished dessert, some activity in the arena drew mentors back to their seats. Io Jasper's District 3 boy, Cirque, crawled out of the barricade near the entrance and looked around before waving someone in. A small, scruffy girl with dark, frizzy hair scrambled after him. Luminia, still napping on the beam, opened one eye to level the determination of their threat. What? That's not what it says. That's not what it says at all. It says, opened one eye to determine their threat level. What? Do I even have brain cells? Who's to say? "No worries, my sweet Lamina," said Pup to the screen. "Those two couldn't climb a step ladder." Apparently, Lamina agreed, because all she did was adjust her body to a more comfortable position. Lucky Flickerman came up in the corner of the screen, napkin tucked into his collar and a smudge of blueberry on his chin. He reminded the audience that the children were the tributes from District 3, the technology district. Cirque was the boy who claimed he could ignite things with his glasses. And the girl's name is... Lucky glanced off the screen for a cue card. Teslie from 3, and she's being mentored by our own, and he looked off the screen again, this time seeming lost. That would be our own... "I'll make an effort," Urbane Cannaville grumbled from the first row. Like Io, his parents were something of scientists, physicist, maybe? Urbane was so ill-tempered that everyone felt fine resenting the perfect scores he brought in on calculus tests. Coriolanus thought that he could hardly blame Lucky for his laziness after ditching the interviews. Tesley looked small, but not hopeless. Right, yes, our own Turbane Canville, said Lucky. Urbane, not Turbane, said Urbane. Honestly, could they get a professional for this? Unfortunately, we did not see Turbane and Tesley at the interview, said Lucky. Because she refused to speak to me, Urbane snapped. Somehow immune to his charms, Festus said, causing the whole back row to laugh. I'm going to send Cirque something right now. No telling when I'll see him again, announced Io, working off her communicuff. Coriolanus could see Urbane following suit. Cirque and Tesley quickly skirted around Marcus's body and crouched down to examine the broken drones. Their hands moved delicately over the equipment, assessing the damage, probing into the compartments that would have gone unnoticed otherwise. Cirque removed a rectangular object that Coriolanus took for a battery and gave Tesley a thumbs up. Tesley reached some wires on hers, and the drone blinked its lights. They grinned at each other. Oh my, exclaimed Lucky. Something is happening here. It would be more exciting if they had the controllers, said Urbane, but he seemed a little less angry now. The pair was examining the drones when two more flew in and dropped some bread and water in their general vicinity. As they gathered up their gifts, a figure appeared deep in the arena. They consulted, and then they picked up the drone and hastily beat a path back to the barricade. The figure turned out to be Reaper, who ducked into one of the tunnels and emerged carrying someone in his arms. As the cameras trained on them, Coriolanus saw that it was Dill, who seemed to have shrunk, her body curled up into a fetal position. I completely agree, Nikki. She stared dully into the evening sun that dappled her ashen skin. A cough brought a strand of bloody spittle out of the side of her mouth. I'm surprised she even lasted a day, Felix commented to no one in particular. Reaper stepped around the debris from the bombing until he reached a sunny spot, and he laid Dill down on a charred piece of wood. She shivered despite the heat. He pointed up at the sun and said something, but she didn't react. Isn't he the one who promised to kill all the others? Asked Pup. Doesn't look tough enough to me, said Urbane. She's his district partner, said Liz Estrada, and she's almost dead. Tuberculosis, probably. That quieted people down as a bad strain of the stuff still cropped up in the capital, where it was barely managed as a chronic condition, let alone cured. In the districts, of course, it was a death sentence. Reaper paced relentlessly for a moment, either eager to get back to the hunt or unable to handle Dill's suffering, and then he gave her one last pat and locked toward the barricade. Shouldn't you send him something? Domita said to Clemencia. What for? He didn't kill her. He just carried her. I'm not going to reward him for that, Clemencia retorted. Coriolanus, who had been avoiding Clemencia all day, decided that he made the right decision. She wasn't herself. Maybe the snake venom had altered her brain. Well, I might as well use what little I have. It's hers, Felix said and punched something into his communicuff. 2 bottles of water flew in by drone. Dill seemed oblivious to them. After a few moments, the boy who Coriolanus remembered juggling sprinted out of a tunnel, his black hair flowing behind him, and without missing a step, he reached down and grabbed the water and then disappeared through a large crack in the wall. A voiceover from Lucky reminded the audience that the boy was Treach, from District 7, mentored by Vespania Sickle. Well, that's harsh, Felix said. He might have at least given her one last drink. That's good thinking, though, said Vespania. Saves me money. I don't have much to work with. The sun sank towards the horizon, and the carrion birds wheeled slowly over the arena. At last, Dill's body convulsed with a final violent bout of coughing, and a gush of blood soaked her filthy dress. Coriolanus felt unwell. The blood pouring from her mouth both horrified and disgusted him. Lucky Flickerman came on and announced that Dill, the girl from District 11, had died of natural causes. Sadly, that meant that we wouldn't be seeing much more of Felix Raven still. Lepidus, can we have a few last words with him from Heavensby Hall? Lepidus pulled Felix out and asked him how he felt about having to leave the games. Well, it isn't a shock, really. The girl was on her last legs when she got here, said Felix. I think it's enormously to your credit that you got her even through the interview, said Lepidus sympathetically. Many mentors didn't even manage that. Coriolanus wondered if Lepidus's high praise had more to do with Felix being the grandnephew of the president than anything else, but he didn't begrudge it. It set a precedent for a level of success that he'd already surpassed, so even if Lucy Gray didn't last the night, he could still be viewed as a standout. But she must last the night. Ooh, that is ironic, Amber. I didn't even think of that. It's ironic because he does end up coughing up blood later in his life. Ooh, I wonder if he gets tuberculosis and we just don't know it. Oh, how interesting. And then another light, until she won. But he had promised to help her, and so far he'd done absolutely nothing except promote her to the audience. Back at the studio, Lucky heaped a few more compliments onto Felix and then signed off. As night falls out on the arena, most of our tributes have bedded down, and so should you. We'll keep an eye on things here, but we really don't expect much action until morning. Pleasant dreams to you all. The game makers cut a wide shot of the arena, where the silhouette of Lamia on her beam was about all Coriolanus could make out. After dark, the arena had no lighting except what the moon provided, and that usually didn't make for good viewing. Dean Highbottom said they might as well go home, although bringing a toothbrush and a change of clothes for the future would be a good idea. They all shook hands with Felix and congratulated him on a job well done, and most of them meant it, as the day had cemented the mentor bond in a brand new way. There were members of a special club now that would dwindle down to all but one, always defining them. As he walked home, Coriolanus did the math. 2 more tributes were dead, and he'd stopped counting Marcus as a contender a while back, though. Still, only 13 left, and only 12 competitors that Lucy Gray needed to survive. And, as Dill and the asthmatic boy from District 5 had proven, a lot of it could come down to a matter of her simply outliving the others. He thought back to yesterday, wiping her tears away, and the promise to keep her alive, and the kiss. Was she thinking of him now? Was she missing the way that he missed her? He hoped that she would make an appearance tomorrow and he could get her some food and water, remind the audience of her existence. He only had a few new gifts in the afternoon, and that might have been due to her alliance with Jessup. Lucy Gray's charming songbird persona was coming less impressive with each grim moment in the Hunger Games. No one knew about the rat poison except for him, so that did not help her standing. Hot and tired from the stressful day, he wanted nothing more than to shower and sink into bed. But the moment he stepped into the apartment, the fragrance of jasmine tea reserved for company wafted over him. Who would be visiting at this hour? After an opening day at that, it was far too late for Grandmama's friends and far too late for neighbors to be dropping in. They weren't the dropping in kind anyway. Something must be wrong. The Snows rarely used the television in the formal living room, but of course they did have one. Its screen showed the darkened arena just as he'd left it at Heavensby Hall. The Grandmama, who'd pulled a decent robe over her nightdress, perched stiffly on a straight-backed chair at the tea table while Tigress poured out a steaming cup of pale liquid for their guest. For there sat Mrs. Plinth, frumpier than ever, with her hair disheveled and her dress awry, crying into her handkerchief. "You're such nice people," she sputtered. "I'm sorry to have to drop in on you like this." "Any friend of Coriolanus is a friend to all of us," said the Grandmama. "Plinch, did you say it was?" Coriolanus knew she knew exactly who Ma was, but to be forced to entertain anyone, let alone a Plinth, at this hour challenged everything that Grandmama stood for. "Plinth," said the woman. "Plinth." "You know, Grandmama, she sent that lovely casserole when Coriolanus was injured," Tigress reminded her. "I'm sorry, it's too late," said Mrs. Plinth. "No, please don't apologize. You did exactly the right thing," said Tigress, patting her shoulder. She spotted Coriolanus and looked relieved. "Oh, look, here's my cousin now. Perhaps he knows something." "Mrs. Plinth, what an unexpected pleasure. Is everything all right?" Coriolanus asked as if she was dripping with bad news. "Oh, Coriolanus, it isn't. It isn't, not at all. Sejanus hasn't come home. We heard he left the academy this morning and I haven't seen him since, and oh gosh, I'm so worried," she said. "Where can he be? I know Marcus being like that hit him hard. Do you know where he could be? Was he upset when he left?" Coriolanus remembered that Sejanus' outburst was throwing of a chair, shouting of insults, and had been confined to Heavensby Hall's audience. "Oh, honey, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? Yeah." Yeah, he was upset, ma'am, but I don't know that that was any cause for worry. He probably just needed to blow off some steam. He took a long walk or something. It's the same thing that I would do myself. Oh, but it's so late. It isn't like him to up and disappear, not without letting his mama know, she fretted. Is there anywhere that you can think of that he might go, or somebody he might visit? Asked Tigress. Mrs. Plinth shook her head. No, your cousin's his only friend. How sad, thought Coriolanus, to have no friends. But he only said, if he wanted company, I think he would have come to me first. You can see how he might have needed some time alone to, make sense of all this. I'm sure he's all right. Otherwise you would have heard of it. Did you check with the peacekeepers? Asked Tigress. Mrs. Plinth nodded. Yes, no sign of him. You see, said Coriolanus, there's been no trouble. Maybe he's even home by now. Well, perhaps you should go and check, suggested the grandmamma a little too obviously, and Tigress shot her a look. Or you could just call. But Mrs. Plinth had calmed down enough to take the hint. No, your grandma's right. Home is a place I should be, and I should let you all get to bed. Coriolanus will walk you home, said Tigress firmly, and she'd left him no choice, so he just nodded. Yeah, of course. My car's waiting down the block. Mrs. Plinth rose and patted her hair down. Thank you. You've all been so kind. Thank you. She gathered up her voluminous handbag and was starting to turn when something on the screen caught her eye, and she froze. Coriolanus followed her gaze and saw a shadowy shape slip out of the barricade and cross towards Laminia. The figure was tall, male, carrying something in his hand. Was it Reaper or Tanner, he thought? And the boy stopped when he reached Marcus's corpse, and he looked up at the sleeping girl. I guess one of the tributes finally decided to make a move on her, Coriolanus thought, and he knew he should watch. But as a mentor, he really wanted to get rid of Mrs. Plinth. He should watch as a mentor, but he really wanted to get rid of Mrs. Plinth first. Well, shall I walk you to your car? He asked. I bet you'll find Sejanus in bed. No, Coriolanus, said Mrs. Plinth in a hushed voice. No, she nodded at the screen. My boy's right there.
Dun, dun, dun.
Sejanus snuck into the arena, you guys. Sejanus snuck into